Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you had a good break. I hope you had a chance to see the trade show, and we appreciate you showing support of all of the businesses that have come as part of our trade show. This morning, it's my pleasure and my honor to be able to introduce Saskatchewan's new Premier, the Honourable Scott Moe. Congratulations, sir, on your election, and thank you for being with us today. We appreciate that you took on this role just last Friday, and we know how busy you have been in the meantime of pulling everything together, and that just emphasizes to us even more how much you value SUMA to be here, and we say a huge thank you very much. And that comes from SUMA, our Board of Directors, and our 443 municipalities. Our residents are here representing nearly 80% of the population of the province. And so it's a pleasure to see our new Premier valuing this relationship between government and SUMA. And despite being busy, we know that it has taken a great amount of effort to pull a cabinet together, and I see many of the cabinet ministers here today, and so a huge welcome to you as well. Just on a personal note, the Premier and I have had a good working relationship in the past. When I was president of the University of Saskatchewan, Premier Moe was the minister in charge of advanced education, and we established a friendship and a good working relationship then. And when I became the president of SUMA, he was the Minister of the Environment. And again, we worked very closely together. So I say, Premier, I'm really looking forward to working together in the weeks and months and years ahead, in hoping that we will be working together in shaping Saskatchewan. So please welcome and join me in welcoming our new Premier of Saskatchewan, the Honourable Scott Moe.
Well, thank you very much, Gordon, and I do appreciate the comments about the work that we had the opportunity to do as in your capacity as President of the University of Saskatchewan and mine as Advanced Education Minister, and then also as Minister of Environment, who happens to be fairly popular, in particular in the Bear Pit sessions at either a SARM or SUMA conference, and even more popular than the Premier, and I'm anticipating that'll be the case on Wednesday. But SUMA executive members, Dr. Barnhart, staff, delegates, my legislative colleagues, caucus and cabinet colleagues that are with us today, thank you for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate the warm welcome more than you know. It's wonderful to be back at SUMA here again today in this capacity. And this convention, I think it's fair to say, is a highlight in our calendar year, in the government's calendar year, to attend this convention and converse with our municipal leaders from across the province. It's a chance for us to renew acquaintances and to have a good conversation about the issues that present themselves before all of us, I say, as we all live in a municipality and work quite closely with those that we represent as your MLAs. This culminates, of course, with the annual mauling, as I said, in the Bear Pit session, most particularly of the Environment Minister, and if you have environment questions, Dustin Duncan will be ready to take them. But I do know that many of you must be thinking about one thing that I know I have been thinking about the last couple of days, and many people across the province have been thinking about, with the retirement of our Premier, Brad Wall, the leadership race, and ultimately myself and our cabinet being sworn in last Friday, is that finally in this great province of Saskatchewan, we now have a Premier with some charisma and some ability to communicate. After all of these years, we've finally made it here. But more seriously, you know, hearing these words last week for the first time, Premier-designate, Premier Scott Moe, this does take a little getting used to, and I'm not used to it yet, nor will I ever be, I think, in my mind. And I don't think you'll see this title going to my head anytime soon, for a number of reasons. The first and foremost is We have a great team. We have a great team that Premier Wall has worked at building capacity with. I've moved my chair in the caucus room and I've moved where I sit in the cabinet room, but I'm still working with the same great caucus team and cabinet team that we have all along. Further to that, I'm from Shelburne, Saskatchewan. I service the constituency or serve the constituents of Roster and Shelburne. And I saw Mayor Ron Kowalchuk here. I know Mayor Tom Porowski is likely here. I don't think Gary Von Hallweed from Spiritwood made it. Dennis Helmuth is likely here from the community of Rostern. And if you know any of these individuals, they will ensure that I am held to task as a member of the Legislative Assembly, first and foremost, before any of Premier Scott Moe rolls off of their mouth. They have a tendency to do that over the last 5 or 6 years as we work on congruent issues together, and they will into the future. And lastly, but most definitely not least, is at home. And Premier Wall has often said that my wife still wears the pants in our family, and she's still the boss. And in saying that, that's quite all right. I am the luckiest man in the world to be married to my wife, as I know many people and spouses feel in this room. I feel I am the luckiest person in the world to be married to Krista. We'll be celebrating our 25th anniversary this spring, and I don't know how I got her and hang on to her, but I'm very, very blessed. But ladies and gentlemen, I am very humbled to take on the duties and responsibilities of this very high office in our province, and I'm profoundly grateful for the opportunity. I'm proud to lead the incredible group of men and women who comprise the government caucus, our government caucus, and our new cabinet. And I would like to start by thanking Larry Doak, in particular for his service as Minister of Government Relations and First Nation, Métis and Northern Affairs. And I want to welcome Minister Kading, Warren Kading, for picking up where Larry left off. And I'm confident in Minister Kading will carry out his duties in the collegial style that has come to typify the relationship between our two levels of government, and I look forward, as I hope you do, to working with him into the future. We have a great team here, ladies and gentlemen, and today my promise to you is this, and to all of Saskatchewan, I commit this. It's our team that will work diligently and conscientiously to earn your trust and your confidence. We will do everything in our power to be a government worthy of the vision, worthy of the ambitions and aspirations of the people of this great province. And this morning, I'd like to give you a little bit of an idea, some semblance of what you can expect in the days ahead, not only in the matters that are pertinent to municipalities, but in a more general nature concerning the province of Saskatchewan as well. And I'm really pleased that SUMA is one of the very first stops that we have the opportunity as a team to attend, because the strength of our province of Saskatchewan can be found in every one of the communities that you in this room represent. And I know this because myself and the other leadership candidates, I think, have visited most of your communities over the last 5 months. It certainly seems like it during this leadership race, and it certainly seems like we visited all of them, quite honestly. I myself had over 40,000 kilometers on my vehicle. I know many other candidates did as well. And I would say that I think we gave the Saskatchewan Wanderer a run for his money here the past year, or half a year, pardon me. But whether it be from Kinnersley to Kenora, or whether it be from Fox Valley to Foam Lake, or the hundreds of points in between those communities and others, we did cover a lot of ground and we talked to a lot of people. Each of us as leadership candidates in our teams. And this morning I do want to take a moment and recognize the other leadership candidates, their teams, and the effort that they made in the engagement of people across this province, the important engagement that I think we need to continue as a government caucus and a government cabinet into the weeks and months ahead. So thank you very much to the other candidates for your effort. All of us as candidates during this process had the good fortune of meeting thousands of people in your communities, people from every walks of life, and it was a tremendously rewarding experience, both from a professional perspective, but also from a personal perspective. We heard where our government has gotten some things right, but we also heard from time to time, and we heard this pretty directly sometimes bluntly actually, where possibly we could do just a little bit better of a job. We gained a deeper understanding for what a great place our communities and our province is. And ladies and gentlemen, that in itself was worth all of the miles that I could have ever put on my vehicle. This leadership campaign reminded me of a couple of very important things about our province. The first is obvious to all of us as he drove to Regina, is Saskatchewan is a beautiful place. In particular in the fall, it's a beautiful place. And when we were driving around as the harvest is underway and we see our migratory birds, our ducks and geese flying south, some of them are being chased there by the odd hunter, but they are heading south, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place in the fall. And the truth is that Saskatchewan is actually stunningly beautiful in all of our seasons. The second fact that I was reminded of is about the people in our great province. The people of Saskatchewan are formidable, either individually or collectively as a group. They are strong, they are compassionate, they are optimistic, and they are tenacious. And oh my goodness, do we work hard in this province. And the leadership in our communities reflect just that character and spirit of the people in our communities. Along the way, we had the opportunity to meet many municipal councillors as well as administrators, and we had some good conversations, some great conversations, I would say, about some of the challenges that you face in your community and the challenges, I say, that we face as a province alongside you. But we also heard of some of the fantastic ideas and the solutions that you are thinking about and that we can work on together. And I came away quite impressed with the attitude of our municipal leadership across this province. I came away impressed with the commitment that each of you bring to your jobs as a municipal leader. And we all know that these jobs don't often involve a lot of fame, they don't involve a lot of money, and they don't involve a lot of fortune. And I would say this on behalf of our caucus and cabinet colleagues here today, and on behalf of the entire government of Saskatchewan, we are so very grateful for your service in leading your community, wherever that may be in this great province. Thank you very much for what you do. So, ladies and gentlemen, I do have a fairly tough act to follow, in case you haven't read that in the media. I've read it in the media a number of times. I think Murray Mandrick has mentioned it once or twice, probably 10 times in the last week. He only has 7 columns. He's mentioned it 10 times. But the fact of the matter is Murray is correct. And I may not say that a lot as we go through for the next number of years, but this time Murray is correct. Brad Wall may be one of the tougher acts, if not the toughest act to follow in Canadian politics. And you know, it was said, likely best, by Abraham Lincoln that he was both steel and velvet. He was hard as a rock or soft as a drifting fog. And I think Brad Wall would be embarrassed if we were speaking of him in the same breath as Abraham Lincoln. But I think it bears truth that our former premier is a combination of steel and velvet, toughness and compassion, if you will. And those qualities, along with his intelligence, his sense of humor that we all experienced, as well as his unerring instinct for being in step with us, the people of the province, his ability to build capacity in government as a team, I think all of these qualities made him a very special leader for our province. And it's my feeling very strongly that we, as the people of the province, owe Brad and Tammy and their family our deepest gratitude, and I know you'll join me in wishing them all the best as they begin the next chapter in their lives. So then the question begs, what can you expect from a government led by myself, a government led by Scott Moe? And I think the first thing that we can all notice, as I walk up on stage, is Scott Moe is not Brad Wall. Scott Moe never will be Brad Wall. None of us are Brad Wall in this room. So rather, I am going to take the advice of Willie Desjardins, the pride of Climax, Saskatchewan, and the head coach of our men's Olympic hockey team. Back when Willie was coaching the Vancouver Canucks, he gave a speech and it said this, and I quote, "One thing that I have learned is you have to be who you are. You can't be someone you're not. It just falls apart on you." End quote. It just falls apart on you. So, of course, Willie was eventually fired by the Vancouver Canucks. But we're hoping for a much better outcome here in 2020. And I think it's incumbent on us. Willie's advice is still sound. You cannot be someone you're not. I need to be myself. I'm not our former premier, but I would say that I do share some traits that Premier Wall had. Like Premier Wall, I will work hard for you and the people of Saskatchewan. I grew up on a farm where the expectation was pretty clear. You do your chores, and then maybe you might have some more chores, and then possibly you could go have some fun. Like Premier Wall, I am passionate about Saskatchewan. I love this province and all of the communities in it dearly. I'm confident in our province's future. There is no better place in the world for us to start a career, for us to raise our family, for us to build a life than the province of Saskatchewan. That I truly believe. And ladies and gentlemen, I am absolutely convinced of this, that our province and our communities and our people's best days are still ahead of us. And finally, like Premier Wall, I am resolved to defend the interests of Saskatchewan, our communities, our industries, our families, our jobs, come what may. And that's why on my watch, there will not be a carbon tax in the province of Saskatchewan. Delegates, a carbon tax is a blunt, ineffective, destructive instrument to our export-based economy. No jurisdiction that has ever introduced a carbon tax has seen a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions due to that tax. When it comes to reducing emissions, our province, our communities, our industries, and our people have so much more to offer. This is outlined in our Made in Saskatchewan Climate Change Plan. For example, in this province, we are pioneers of zero-tillage technology that helps sequester millions of tons of carbon in our soil in Saskatchewan each and every year. Air drills that are exported around the world from companies like Borgo Industries in St. Brew, Morris Industries in Yorkton, Seedmaster in Emerald Park, and Seedhawk near Langebank. And now, this machinery is making real and significant contributions in the global effort to address climate change that should be recognized by our federal government and by the world, as we are now exporting that machinery to places such as Australia, Kazakhstan, and the European Union. As should the work of Sask Power at Boundary Dam 3 at our carbon capture and storage project, as well as the carbon capture and storage test facility at Shand Power Station, should be recognized by our federal government as well as countries around the world. At BD3, they've captured now more than 1.8 million tons of carbon since its startup. That's the equivalent of almost taking 500,000 vehicles off the road each and every year. And the fact is this: the discussion about carbon tax and climate change in Canada is getting rather puzzling. At times, it actually seems completely disconnected with reality. We hear about the oil sands and we hear about the energy sector, but we don't hear much about the 16 new coal-fired power plants that are being planned or either under construction in other areas of the world. For example, in Vietnam, as we speak, they're building a complex of coal-fired power generators with a generating capacity of 4,300 megawatts. That's just a few megawatts shy of our total generating capacity by Sask Power in this province, and it's under construction as we speak. China, over the last decade, has added 600,000 megawatts of coal power from 2006 to 2016. This is five times our nation's total electrical generating capacity from all sources. This is being added in China, or has been added over the last decade. It's all coal, and it's all new power generating electricity. The same in Vietnam. So it's clear that we will not slow our global emissions, or we will not address climate change without having the conversation globally about incorporating carbon capture and storage technology that is now being advanced in Estevan, Saskatchewan. And it's not just me that is stating this. According to the International Energy Agency, carbon capture and storage could deliver 13% of the emissions reductions needed by the year 2050 to limit our global increase in temperature by 2 degrees, which is the basis of the Paris Accord. There should be acknowledgement of Saskatchewan's pivotal role in the development of important and necessary knowledge when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to energy, when it comes to mining, and when it comes to carbon capture and storage. So no, Ladies and gentlemen, we will not be backing down on this misguided carbon tax. We will continue to stand for our industries, to stand for our energy sector, our mining industry, our agricultural industry, our manufacturing industry, which invests billions of dollars across this great province, and they employ thousands of people in communities that you represent and that I represent across this great province of Saskatchewan. And I would say this, our advocacy today is more important now than it has ever been before. We have Western Canadian oil prices that are under pressure because we are not able to build a pipeline in this country. We do not get anywhere near what we should for our resources out of this province because in Western Canada we are not able to get our energy products to Tidewater. And British Columbia is making that a little tougher as of late by launching yet another environmental study of the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion, a project that, quite frankly, has been studied to death, fully reviewed and approved by the federal government and by our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. And we welcome Prime Minister Trudeau's statement recently that Trans Mountain will be built, and we appreciate him reaffirming this commitment recently, and we will hold him to that promise for the sake of our economy in Western Canada and Saskatchewan. We must stand for this sector. It's too important to the economic and social well-being of Canada. It's too important to the economic and social well-being of our province and the communities across it. We must stand with our innovative and increasingly diversified agricultural sector. Saskatchewan farmers sustainably feed the world, and they deserve our support. We'll stand with our mining industry that produces fuel and fertilizer that is consumed around the globe. And we will defend the interests of our growing manufacturing and food processing sectors that are adding value and jobs to communities across this great province. Ladies and gentlemen, we have always been a government that is proud of the way that we make a living in our province, and that will not change, nor will our fundamental direction. Certainly some policies will be revisited based on what we heard during the leadership campaign and prior to the leadership campaign, but also based on some conversations that have yet to be had in our ongoing discussions. There will be changes in that respect, no doubt. And we need to act on the advice that we are given by you and others. During this most recent campaign, I committed to boosting the funding for education, and we'll be looking for that to come to fruition very soon. I promised to reinstate the PST exemption on crop insurance as well as life and health insurance. This is what we heard from people in the province. These commitments will be honored. In the case of education funding, as I mentioned, that announcement will be coming very soon. But what is not subject to revision is the overarching philosophy of the Government of Saskatchewan. Growth remains our North Star. Growth led by the private sector. Growth to ensure that we can afford the quality of life the people of this province, us in this room, and the people we represent have come to expect and deserve. And as we work with you and others to move Saskatchewan forward, you can expect a government that will be guided by pragmatism and common sense. A government that will admit its mistakes and make course corrections as we require. A government that approaches its work with purpose and resolve. And crucially, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue to be a government that keeps its promises. A decade ago, when we first came to office, we promised to address concerns about municipal revenue sharing. We worked with you to develop a new formula, and we thank you for that work. But we worked with you to develop a new formula that was transparent and it was predictable. Over the last 10 years, I think it's fair to say that that formula has served us well. We've seen revenue sharing for Saskatchewan communities more than double during this past decade of growth in those very same communities. For example, in Regina, it's up 157%. In the community of Moose Jaw, 126%. And where I live in Shelbrook, it's up 147%. Mayor Tom Porowski might not like me making that comment. But now, as you know, the formula is based on 1 percentage point of the PST. We all know that. And with slower growth this past year, due to a slower economy, revenue sharing this coming fiscal year will be expected to decrease somewhat to about $241 million. But I would say this, we are still in a far better position than we were when we started this conversation in 2007. We could all agree on that. And in this last budget, we made some changes to the PST. We raised it a point and we broadened the scope. This was in an effort to reduce the government of Saskatchewan's dependency on resource revenues. Given those changes, I think it's fair to have the conversation as we move forward that we are not able to continue with the current revenue sharing formula. My friends, I'm hopeful that we are able to sit down at that same table again together to develop a new formula that is fair and provides the predictability that I know each of you in this room require and desire, and I think deserve. I propose we work together over the next months and years to devise a new formula that works for our Saskatchewan communities to continue to provide just that comparable, predictable, and sustainable funding level that our communities need. This morning, I'm also announcing this. We'll be releasing the provincial budget on April the 10th of this spring. This is about 2 weeks later than normal, but I think it's reasonable given the circumstances of the change in leadership in our government. Delegates, this will be another tight budget. The economy is improving, and I'll touch on that in a moment, but we need to control our spending if we're going to balance the books in the next 2 years in our province, and that is the objective. We are not going to put off balancing our budget to some undetermined, distant point in the future. Others in this nation may, but we are not. Today, we have a solid financial foundation in our province. We have the second lowest debt to GDP ratio among all of the provinces in the nation of Canada, and it's something we can be proud of. We have a strong credit rating. I know this doesn't quicken the pulse of all of us in this room. Few of us get up in the morning and we ponder the magnificence of our debt to GDP ratio, but it matters and it's important, and we need to pay attention to it. Since 2007, we've reduced the operating debt in the province of Saskatchewan, and even with the more recent deficits that we've had, we've saved about $1.5 billion in interest. This means that we have about $1.5 billion to devote to health care, to devote to education, to devote to social services, to devote to infrastructure in our communities, and to tax relief. The more debt that we pile on, the more interest we have to pay, the less money we have to devote to those very important priorities for all of us. So there can be no delay. Now is the time to act. And it is my hope that all levels of government and all organizations that depend on public funding will look hard to find savings internally before they go to ask the taxpayer for more money. And in the budget, we will have details on grants in lieu, which I know is a concern to many of you in this room. Ladies and gentlemen, we need a permanent solution to grants in lieu. Right now, about 109 of 300 municipalities benefit from this program, and we're looking to make it a fairer program for all municipalities, and we need your help at that very same table to accomplish this. The budget will also provide guidance on infrastructure spending, which remains a priority, I know, for your community, and it remains a priority for the provincial government. Since 2007, we've committed to more than $26 billion to renewing and expanding infrastructure across this great province. That includes $7.4 billion in highways. It's more than double the amount that was invested in highways the decade previous, and we're currently in discussions with the new Investing in Canada plan. We are currently in discussions with the federal government with respect to that infrastructure initiative. We expect there will be agreement in place by the end of March with details on the funding and details on the eligibility criteria. Finally, last but not least, I know that cannabis is top of mind for many of you in this room, in particular Minister Makowski, who I saw and I don't see him right now. The decision to legalize cannabis does create some challenges. It creates challenges at the municipal level. It also creates challenges at the provincial level, and we have proceeded more cautiously than other areas of the nation. And we've done this because we truly want to get this right. There's some serious health concerns with respect to this implementation, as well as public safety issues that we need to consider, and we want to get them right. Last month, the retailing system was announced, and right now we're gathering feedback from municipalities and First Nations communities where retailers could potentially operate. There will be more regulatory details coming in the next days and months, but on questions of the legal age, which I know is a concern of many, I plan to take some time to consult with my caucus members and my cabinet members in the very near future, and we'll make a decision as soon as we're able. My friends, as we deal with these issues and others, we should recognize in this province that we are operating from a position of great strength. According to RBC, with some statistics released lately, Saskatchewan is projected to grow by 2.7% this year, as well as next year. This ranks us first among the provinces in Canada. Our population is growing faster than it has in 8 decades. There are now nearly 1.17 million people that call Saskatchewan home. That's up over 160,000 people in the last decade. We have strong manufacturing sales from the province of Saskatchewan. We're growing at the second highest rate in the nation. Building permits are up. We had the 3rd highest percentage increase among the provinces. There's renewed hope in the energy sector, with the oil price finally holding steady at just above $60. According to Pipeline News recently, we have the highest drilling rig utilization rate in Canada. More than 60% of our rigs in this province are now active. Crescent Point is leading the way with over $1 billion investment in that industry this year. Husky is investing $700 million in more thermal heavy oil plants, creating 300 construction jobs and 30 permanent jobs after the fact. TransCanada Pipelines, TransCanada has confirmed that it has customers for its Keystone XL pipeline, and when Keystone proceeds, hundreds of additional construction jobs will be created. And that project will secure and possibly create more jobs at Evraz, right here in Regina, which is supplying most of the pipe for the Canadian portion of the Keystone XL pipeline. And by the way, just a comment on Evraz that summarizes our stance on another issue. Most steel plants around the world use a blast furnace. Evraz uses what's called an electric arc furnace. Blast furnaces emit 6 times the greenhouse gas emissions than an electric arc furnace does. If a carbon tax was ever imposed in Saskatchewan, there's a strong possibility that a company like Evraz would move. They'd move to a jurisdiction like the United States, or more likely China, where 40% of the industry has moved in the last decade, and they would likely open a blast furnace in that jurisdiction, emitting 6 times the emissions that we are in our province, and the jobs that we have here would move with it. They would be gone. This is not what I call progress, and this is why we've taken the stance that we have with respect to that misguided tax. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, I want to observe that there's a reason for optimism in Saskatchewan today. It's not just because of the growing strength in our economy. Our economic fortunes in this province have a tendency to wax and wane from time to time. We know that, but there is cause for hope in our province. Our communities, where the virtues of fortitude and faith, where the virtues of charity and humility are on full display everywhere, all the time. And this was no more vivid. These virtues were no more vivid than when I witnessed the response to the prairie fires that swept southwest Saskatchewan last fall. We saw neighbors helping neighbors without any hesitation and sometimes without any regard for their own personal safety. We saw volunteer fire crews come out of nowhere to battle flames. We saw strangers coming to the aid of people in dire peril. These are the folks, ladies and gentlemen, that we in this room serve. And I know it's humbling to realize that this is the Saskatchewan that we need to tell the world about. This is the Saskatchewan that we should celebrate. This is the Saskatchewan that we know. This is the Saskatchewan that is so strong. This is a Saskatchewan that is compassionate, a Saskatchewan that is confident, a Saskatchewan that is always ready to meet the next challenge. And make no mistake, there are some challenges in our midst. We all have some work to do, and we'll do it, but we'll do it together. Let's roll up our sleeves and let's get at it. Thank you very much for being here today. God bless our great province of Saskatchewan.
Thank you very much, Premier, for your address. We very much appreciate that. And you know, you were speaking earlier about your charisma and your speaking ability. I want to tell you that you missed another characteristic that I think is very valuable and that you have. I grew up in a family where my father believed a handshake, a look in the eye, you were a man of your word. And sir, I attribute that to you as well. I think that you are a man of your word, and we are looking forward to working with you, with SUMA, and all of the best interests of this province. We share with you as well your passion and your love for this province, the beauty of the people, the beauty of the landscape, and that's certainly, I think, universal right across this province. We look forward to working with the government, with the Minister of Finance, with you, with Cabinet in terms of the announced budget that's coming up on April the 10th, and also look forward to the announcements in terms of the infrastructure funding. So thank you very much for all of that, and in appreciation of coming here and speaking to us, I've just given to you that we've made a donation on your behalf to the Mike Badham Scholarship Fund. Mike Badham, as you know, used to be a member of the Regina City Council. He was on the board of SUMA, had a passion for education, and this educational fund is there to support students in the Faculty of Education at the University of Regina. So with that, we say a thank you, and we wish you well, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you very much. I'll now call on SUMA Director Randy Donauer to come up and lead us towards lunch.
Just get everybody to hold tight for a minute or two here. For the SUMA members anyways. Thank you very much, Gordon. Before we begin lunch, we're going to hear briefly from Saskatchewan in Motion, who is our lunch sponsor for today. After the video, Sydney Lester, their youth ambassador, will come and share a message with us. So if we could have the video first, then we'll hear from our speaker.
When you were a kid, I'll bet you spent most of your time here and here and here. You walked to school, rode your bike to your friend's house, and played outside till the streetlights came on. My generation doesn't do much of that. Most Canadian kids spend only 15 minutes a day out here. You'll almost always find us here or here or here. They say we spend 7 to 9 hours a day in front of a screen. Hard to believe, but it's a fact. That's the bad news. The good news is that Saskatchewan in Motion has a simple solution. We just need everyone to do their part to make it work. Kids need to move 60 to 90 minutes a day to be healthy and happy, and you can help make that happen. All we need is 30 minutes of physical activity at home, 30 minutes at school, and 30 minutes in the community. That's where you come in. Kids like me need leaders like you to build communities and neighborhoods where we can move and play, to make it easy and safe for us to walk and bike places, and to think about physical activity when you're creating community plans. I know you have a tough job, with lots of people counting on you for lots of things. Just remember that the kids are counting on you too, and you're not alone. Saskatchewan in Motion can help. They've already helped lots of communities work together to make it easier for kids to be active. They can help you too. The Go Out and Play Challenge, powered by Saskatchewan Blue Cross, is a great place to start. Each year, Saskatchewan communities compete for the chance to win $10,000 towards a project that helps kids and families play outdoors. Past challenge winners have built play spaces, trails, and active school grounds. All it took was a great idea and rallying people to get active and log their physical activity online. The community and community association that moves the most wins. But whether they win or not, every community that enters benefits by raising awareness, boosting community spirit, and getting more kids more active more often. This year, as an added bonus, Saskatchewan in Motion will work with every community that enters the challenge to help make their dreams a reality. So what are you waiting for? You've got all of this to gain and nothing to lose. Visit SaskatchewanInMotion.ca to find out more. I know you got this.
Hi everyone, I'm Sydney, Saskatchewan in Motion's Kid Ambassador. Before I get started, I'd like to give a shout out to 2 SUMA delegates who are important leaders for Saskatchewan in Motion and Active Saskatchewan. Past board member Al Heron from Eston and current board member Randy Golden from Yorkton. Communities can do a lot to help kids move more. So Saskatchewan in Motion really appreciates the leadership and support of people like Randy and Al, and of course, all of you. Now, you might remember me from last year in Saskatoon. You might also remember that most kids in this province aren't moving enough, and we're not spending much time outside at all these days. Like the video says, you play an important role. Kids need your help to make sure we have fun, natural places to play, places exciting enough to pull us off the couch and away from our screens, places that make us want to have some real fun and adventure. I know it might not always seem like it, but that's really what we want too. As proof of that, on your tables there's a gift for each of you. It contains a slice of sustainably harvested birch decorated by a Saskatchewan student, along with a note of encouragement like the one on the screen behind me. It's really important that you take only one each. These slices of birch were individually decorated by students from across the province just for you. The students and I hope you'll take this home and keep it on your desk as a reminder that kids like us are counting on you. We're counting on you to do your part to help us move more by making sure your community is a place where kids and families can have amazing outdoor adventures. We're counting on you, and we know you can do it. I'll finish by saying that we have a photo booth by the coat check. I'll be there until about 12:45 if anyone wants to come take a selfie. Bring your gift along and share it with the hashtag #IGotThis. Thanks for listening. I know you got this. And remember, you're not alone. Saskatchewan in Motion can help. See you at the photo booth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Man,
you.
it's incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, the Premier of Saskatchewan in 2035. Give her a hand. Oh my goodness, I'm going to pop by that photo booth and get some public speaking pointers from Sydney. Make sure you pop by and get a photo with her. I have a guess it'll probably be worth something someday. That's absolutely incredible. Sydney, thank you very much for coming to join us today and speaking, and thank you so much for the gift. We will take these and use them. Thank you so much. And now on to lunch. I just wanted to let you know the Queensbury lunch, if you want to stay at your table, lunch is in this room. It'll be served out in the foyer, and the Queensbury staff will come to your tables and dismiss you in proper order. So if you could wait until they come to get you, that would be great. As well, this is a great time for you to check off the card behind your name badge and drop it in the boxes out at the lunch tables so that you can ensure you can stay up to date on all the latest SUMA materials. A lot of times our SUMA emails will go to your municipality. We want to make sure that our message is getting right to you, not just to the office. Our afternoon schedule starts back here at 1 p.m. sharp with an address from interim Leader of the Opposition, Nicole Sauer. Please be on time because we will be starting right at 1 o'clock. Enjoy your lunch. Thank you.